Hey everyone, it's Rob Loparis from Rob's Car World. I thought we'd touch base on what's going on with Nissan and the rumors that Honda will be taking them over. I read an article today that Honda is trying to explain the logic with their shareholders of why this Nissan merger or takeover will be beneficial. Um, Good luck with that. Really, something that was organized more on the Japanese level. They didn't want to see, one of their homegrown brands go defunct, especially, during the times of a lot of pressure from China and things like that. So, what I thought I'd do is just take you through a quick summary of Nissan. I didn't know Nissan from anything, maybe until the late 60s. When the 510 started coming out. That 510 was a nice looking car, had independent rear suspension, front suspension. It had a rear wheel drive, front engine. And the next best car that you can buy instead of a 510, maybe during that time in the 68, was an Alfa Romero. And then the Datsun 1600 Roadster came out. Again, we had Triumphs and we had Alphas, and now you had a new entry from Japan, from Datsun. And I remember seeing these cars, back in the early days of Watkins Glen and Lime Rock, Connecticut. People that were enthusiasts drove these cars. But I think Nissan or Datsun at the time hit it well, just like all the other brands, the Honda and Toyota brands did. Back in 1970s, when we got hit with two gas crises, we had one in 1974 and we had the other in 1979, 78, 79, 73, 74, in that range. But, the to be there with fuel efficient cars, as nice as the car like the B210, that was a real popular car back then. A lot of people got tired of driving, a Pinto, and the Chevy Vega quality was really horrible. And people were looking for something that got 50 miles to the gallon, and the B210 did just that. And it also had a nice hatchback back there as well. So that was kind of like a new entry for the Japanese brands, and it was priced very well. So that, in combination with their racing efforts when they launched their 240, which indeed was a spot on car when they delivered that car. It was a small Corvette for the people that were growing up in the early 70s. We never really experienced a Japanese, performance car. And the 240Z had all the right stuff. I mean, great design, great interior, not too big, not too small. It wasn't like the Opel GT that, was so tiny. This was a very well balanced performing car. And I think Datsun probably threw, all the money on the table to get that to market. And what they did was, unsuspectingly, Paul Newman, who was a very famous actor, but a rookie driver, hooked up with Bob Sharp in Connecticut. He lived out in Westport, Connecticut, near his home. And Paul Newman started really learning how to drive quicker and quicker with Datsuns, and which became Nissan. So unsuspectedly, Paul Newman being a celebrity, Datsun took the advantage and placed him in all the advertisements. And here it is there. The tagline was Datsun, we are driven. And there's Paul Newman in an ad, and the Budweiser campaign right on his shirt there, racing jacket. And P.L. Newman was really doing a great job to help spread the word about how great Datsuns and Nissans were performing on the racetrack. So combine that success with smaller economy cars during the gas crisis, being very competitive on the performance level for a Japanese brand. There was a lot of competition with Porsche and things like that. But the 280Z and, cars that succeeded after that, and all the sponsors from Canon and things like that during the time, Paul Newman, I think, really helped put the brand on the map, along with Pete Brock. Peter Brock was also campaigning the 510s during the 1960s. He won an IMSA in the Trans Am Series racing. But, just by accident, you had an actor turn race car driver, and he happened to like Bob Shop, who was a Datsun dealer. So, and that's how that worked. Having sold cars in the 80s, what's memorable for me was I remember the Maxima had come out, and that Nissan Maxima was an amazing car. It had power groups that were standard. So back then, with domestics as well as even I was selling Volkswagens. Volkswagen was selling a Jetta with a radio prep for $189, which included speakers and an antenna. And here was a Nissan Maxima with power windows, power door locks, cruise control, really nicely refined alloy wheels and a nice balanced car, for the same price as a Jetta, and even the same price, less expensive than, let's say, an Audi 4000S at the time. So the Nissan Maxima really demonstrated to me at the time what Nissan could do when it comes to being competitive from a product positioning point of view, from a features and benefits point of view. And then something happened along the way with the whole car industry. It got really boring in the 90s and the 2000s when the jelly bean shapes started to appear. And the jelly bean is really easy to comprehend. It's basically when they painted the front bumpers and the rear bumpers the same, color keyed it with the body, and you didn't know if the car was coming or going, and they became so boring, And there's no other better jelly bean out there than the Nissan Altima, both from a very bland point of view, and I'm going to use the word fast food. I think Nissan in the 2000s became a very geared fast food brand that was sold on the dollar menu. So yeah, Honda was doing it and Toyota was doing it, and the big three were diving into price points. But Nissan changed most of their advertising towards the offer rather than the product attributes, in my opinion. So the offers started to become more important, and the offers back in the early 2000s were, $129 a month on a lease, no money down. They bought deeper and deeper into low credit scores, and they sold a lot of cars to fleet sales as well. So that habit started picking up in the 2000s. And again, Honda did the same thing and Toyota did it. But I think Toyota and Honda positioned their quality first and their value as far as a consumer, incentive second. And that continued even into the 2000s and 10s. I remember when the Nissan Rogue came out, and that was a formidable car, when it first came out. And I remember from a Mazda point of view, when I was working with Mazda on the factory level, it was hard to position the Mazda against the Rogue because the Rogue had more content, but they gave these cars away. I mean, they were selling them for, $199 a month, putting into fleet sales. Again, the habits that they started in the 1990s and early 2000s with the Altimas and things like that, they continued on with cars like the Rogue, where they really didn't have to, but with the focus on volumes, being a domestic manufacturer, they were just producing cars, stamping out steel, and putting them out to market. And again, everybody else was doing it. Everybody knew how to sell the game, build big pipelines and incentivize cars. Everybody's guilty of that. But for some reason, I feel Nissan was the one that turned their Tier 1 advertising, which is more brand focused, their Tier 2 advertising, which is more on a regional side with dealer ad groups. And of course, the Tier 3 advertising was the offer and a directional pitch. But I think Nissan, from what I remember and what I have experienced being competitive with them, they were first to really get on the dollar menu and become a fast food brand. And then what happened? Well, what happened was we got, COVID kicked around, right? So everybody started selling cars without incentives, and pipelines were small. People were selling cars for $2,000, $3,000 over MSRP. Car companies like Nissan, Honda, and Toyota and General Motors, they all retracted from big advertising budgets. They also retracted from incentives. And then what happened was they were really living it up with some big profits, both for the dealers and the manufacturers. Even though the volumes were low, they were making some big, serious dollars on the cars they sold. And then they started feeling really good about themselves. Hey, I'm pumped up, we're selling a lot of cars. And they started building the wrong cars at the wrong time. And every manufacturer started building more highly contented, cars, including EVs and things like that, and prices of cars during COVID exceeded on an average of over $50,000 for an average price of a car, and that started getting a little crazy. So the big retraction now has happened. So what happened now? So here we are with Nissan. Nissan's building this, a lot of cars, and they still can't get out of the mode of advertising the Rogue. Here I go right on their website, and the first thing I see is the Rogue for $259 a month, and that's not good enough to sell that Rogue. They got to be at $210 a month or $199 a month, because the habits that they've had now is coming back to bite them. They tried to get their prices up like everybody else. Now there's more inventory. They got to go back on the fast food brands and get back into dollar menu. And Nissan can't afford to do that right now because the profits aren't there any longer. So even this deal here, the Rogue, is $259 a month, but they're looking for $4,700 in monthly payments, up front, cash down. And I got to tell you, you add tax on top of that, you're going to be at $6,500 down for a $259 payment. It's just crazy. And it doesn't work for Nissan. It doesn't resonate. Without a deal, it doesn't resonate showroom traffic. So, what's happened is there's other manufacturers that have done a better job with this. I think Kia and Hyundai, while they brought their prices up a bit, they also invested in their dealers. They invested in their showrooms, and their designs, the Kia and Hyundai designs in particular, are absolutely beautiful. And as are their showrooms. I mean, look at this Kia showroom here. And, the inside of a Hyundai, is absolutely upscale. It's like a Tesla. And this is a Hyundai. So not that I'm all bullish just on Hyundai and Kia, but I have to tell you, I think Hyundai is now becoming the benchmark for even European brands. And we're seeing European brands right now like Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz and a host of other manufacturers all having some problems right now because, quite honestly, they can't drive the profits that they used to bring because, the customers just aren't coming in the door in the big way like they did during COVID. So, Nissan might be the, canary in the coal mine, but Stellantis, Fiat, Maserati, Ford, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, BMW are all facing rising inventories, on and off electric vehicle efforts, competition mostly from China when we get out of the United States and we look at what's going on in the rest of the world, and uncertain economic headwinds spurred by higher interest rates and continued inflation. Plus, here in the United States, it's a crapshoot of how the car industry is going to work over the next 4 to 8 years with the new Trump administration coming in, because he favors more on the gasoline type cars than he does electric vehicles. But at the same time, manufacturers need consistency and they need to be able to plan their pipelines out for 10 years. And it's going to be very hard to do it. So if you're not very strong financially, it's going to be hard to weather the storm. And thinking about weathering the storm, when you look at Ford Motor Company's stock, they're only worth like $10 a share. Sometimes they go down to $9 a share. But they've been hovering to $10 to $14 to $13 a share for years now. And then you have Tesla running at $432 a share. And quite honestly, Tesla is a speculated brand. And Tesla trades far way above its intrinsic value from a profit point of view, as well as a volume and production point of view. So Tesla is that tech car company, and their correction probably isn't going to happen over the next 4 years because of where Elon Musk is on the political side. But I can be honest with you, I think there's a lot of manufacturers, and Tesla is included in that one, that are facing some difficult times, and Nissan might just be that canary in the coal mine. So we wish Nissan luck with what is going to be happening. I'm not 100% sure, how things will work out, but I can tell you I did a video called "The Flock of Seagulls," which is the company, Build Your Dreams, BYD, which is the Chinese manufacturer out that's building all these electric cars. These are the people that are causing a lot of grief in Europe and such because they're building back volume based on the offer, not so much the fast food menu. They're able to package and build a car at a very attractive MSRP. End of story. And that's where the competition is happening. Not so much here in the United States yet, but in the rest of the globe. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share with everybody today. Just my view on Nissan, that they're not the only one facing difficulty, but they kind of had it coming to them only because they've always been a deal-driven franchise. Then they tried to make a lot of money on everybody like everybody did during COVID, and now they're trying to make an apology and drive more showroom traffic. But without that dollar menu, I don't think Nissan could hang in there. And I'm not really sure where Nissan goes once it gets fully involved with Honda and how they will manage that, or if they'll manage that at all. It might just be that Honda manages the wind down of Nissan over a period of 5 years, or a repositioning of Nissan in the globe outside of the United States. Well, anyway, this is Rob Lofaris. Thanks for joining me on Rob's Car World today. If you're not a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe. I have a Patreon channel now where you can support me on Patreon. Thank you for those members that have already supported me on Patreon. You make this job worthwhile. I'll get back to picking out some cars after the new year. Wish everybody a happy 2025. Be safe if you're on the road, and we'll see you again here real soon. Thank you.